If you're retired or planning on it, stop what you're doing and listen carefully. What I'm about to share with you could directly impact your income, your savings, and the value of your dollars. Washington is pressuring the Fed like we haven't seen in decades, and the ripple effect could squarely land on your retirement. We are seeing the effects. Gold is smashing through records, approaching $3,600 an ounce. Silver is doing just what we expected, reducing the gold-silver ratio with $50 an ounce the new target. While the 30-year yield on treasuries is approaching 5% to get interested buyers, the de-dollarization trend upticks as gold surpasses U.S. treasuries in foreign central bank reserves for the first time since 1996. If you can't finish this video right now, I highly suggest that you save it and come back later, because you're not going to want to miss this. Let's dive in. The president has made it crystal clear he wants interest rates cut. This isn't unique to one president. Every president for the last 70 years has tried to bend the Fed to keep interest rates low, every single one, and it usually backfires. The president might be right, but history shows us every time the Fed becomes a political tool, the economy suffers for years and sometimes decades. Although I'm not a fan of the Federal Reserve, whether good or bad, it represents to the world that it is an independent monetary system. The independence from politics creates trust because interest rates follow the economy, not election cycles. It gives the Fed room to fight inflation even when it hurts. The independence makes the U.S. dollar the most trusted currency in the world. When politicians begin to meddle in the Federal Reserve's affairs, these safeguards begin to collapse and the world takes notice. One of the clearest and ugliest examples happened in the early 1970s. President Richard Nixon inherited a rough economy, high unemployment, high inflation, and frustrated voters. Nixon believed the surest way to a second term was to make the economy feel better. He leaned in hard on his friend, Fed Chair Arthur Burns, demanding lower interest rates. At first, Burns resisted, knowing the economy wasn't ready. But Nixon escalated. He bullied Burns in private, leaked stories to the press, and even threatened to pack the Fed board with loyalists until Burns had no choice but to cave. Eventually, Burns did give in to Nixon's demands. Rates were slashed, money got cheap, and the economy perked up. But it was all an illusion. It was really a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. When Nixon's temporary price controls lifted in 1973, that bomb went off. Gas prices spiked, food shortages hit, and inflation roared to almost 9% by 1974, then 12% by the end of the decade. The damage was catastrophic. The Fed was forced to hike interest rates to historic double-digit highs in order to finally crush inflation. That triggered a brutal recession, wiped out savings, and created the nightmare of stagflation. High prices, high unemployment, and an economy going nowhere. It took more than a decade to clean up the mess, and the people who suffered the most? Ordinary Americans, especially retirees and savers, who watched their dollars lose value almost overnight. And this was not an isolated incident. In the 1940s, the Fed was forced to keep rates artificially low to help finance World War II, fueling post-war inflation. In the 1960s, Lyndon Johnson pressured the Fed to keep money cheap to fund the Vietnam War and his Great Society programs. That pressure helped set the stage for the great inflation of the 70s. And in the 1990s, the White House put pressure on the Fed during a recession. Each and every time this happens, the pattern is the same. Short-term gains followed by long-term pain. And here we are today with the cycle starting all over again. And as I mentioned, the world is watching. So it doesn't matter what you and I think about the Fed. The dollar is key to our retirement. When foreign central banks are holding more gold than U.S. treasuries, that's a problem for you and me. The dollar is on track for its worst year since the 1970s. Manufacturing is sinking, the jobs market is weakening, inflation is still running hotter than the Fed's target, the nation is over $37 trillion in debt. No wonder gold and silver are among the highest performing assets of the year. There's something about old adages. When they say history tends to repeat itself, it's because it does. And in this case, if history repeats itself, it's retirement savers who are going to lose. That's why I'm here, so you can understand the game that's being played and get ahead of it.